So the message from Premier Li Keqiang's speech at the World Economic Forum on Africa earlier today was very clear. China will be an important partner working in association with the continent's various nations to boost infrastructure development there. Let's bring in Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics to talk more about this evolving relationship between Africa and China. Professor, so Premier Li has vowed to quadruple investment into Africa by 2020 to $100 billion, building roads, highways, railways, developing human talent, and boosting the aviation industry, all on the agenda for the continent. Put into context for us what this means for growth in Africa, what this means for Chinese companies, and the sectors in China that potentially will benefit the most from this pledge.
Well, China and most of African countries have really enjoyed a long-standing friendship. Before we put a lot of emphasis on foreign aid, now in addition to foreign aid, the Chinese investment is getting very dynamic in this region. And I think many of the Chinese companies have really taken full advantage of the timely situation over there. So while the investment environment has been improving, the Chinese overseas investment in Africa has really harvested a great deal. And so the impact to the local community development is huge in that the infrastructure is rapidly improving, and the consumers are having better choice over the goods and services provided by Chinese companies. But on the other hand also, China has benefited a lot through the supply of new materials and new fruits to China, and also that many of the Chinese small businesses, in addition to those giant the state-owned companies, are also grasping this opportunity to make a profit over there. I think one thing we need to caution is that there has been increasing complaint about the social responsibility by Chinese companies, so now they have to step up in their the CSR performance in that region, particularly in view to the protection of the environment and also safe working place over there.
Okay, Professor, you mentioned China's investment into Africa, and according to China's Ministry of Commerce, a third of the country's investment heading into Africa, primarily, at least right now, goes to South Africa. These were the Ministry of Commerce's 2010's latest numbers. 9% of China's FDI to Africa goes to Nigeria, and for Ethiopia and Angola, two other countries on the trip list for Premier Li Keqiang this time around, just 3% each. Will this trip by Premier Li significantly diversify where Chinese investment goes in Africa moving forward?
Well, for investment, it is really a rational decision making, and for the southern part of Africa, where the infrastructure is more sophisticated and the local investment environment is more friendly and communicative to many of the Chinese companies, whereas the northern part of Africa is interrupted by a number of political risks. So therefore, many Chinese companies have been burned, for example, from Libya. And I think over the long run, is this really going to be balanced between north part and south part? I think there are also more balances that need to be considered right now. Most of the Chinese investment over there are in the infrastructure construction and extractive industry. But much more is needed to really unearth the potential for the manufacturing industry, service, and financial in terms of in supporting of the local community development and looking for the mutual prosperity.
Right. Now, Premier Li did talk about more inclusive growth with Africa, so potentially we will see more diversification in terms of Chinese investment into Africa. Professor Liu, stay with us. We're going to come back to you shortly.